normal meeting of the City Council, and we cannot take action on any item of significant interest to the public that does not appear to the agenda. And now that we've been called to order, I'm going to open the meeting up to a public comment on all items. This is your time to comment on any matter which is on the agenda or not on the agenda, falling within the scope of the Billings City Council. You may only speak once for each item during the meeting. We ask that if you're here to speak, please sign in at the back. Walk up to the podium when it's your turn. State your name and your address, and you'll have 3 minutes.
What is the problem here?
Any public comment?
And I would speak to item 3, and I would encourage the review of boards, commission, and committees. Thanks.
Any other public comment? Oh,
Sorry.
ouch, did that hurt?
And I'm sorry, I thought it was going to be at the end, so I was not prepared. Chris Glenn, hello, City Council. Thank you for serving, and thank you for letting me speak. I want to start by saying I'm talking about item number 5, I think, which is the board review. And I want to say I support the board review. As someone who trained in system engineering and Lean Six Sigma, I really believe every structure should periodically be reviewed to see if it's working. Is it efficient? Is it worth the cost? And I also think it's important when looking at the boards that not just looking at visible line item costs, but to also look at the less obvious ways where councils or where committees are helpful. For instance, well-scoped boards extend the city's thinking capacity without adding to staff. They can vet ideas early and prevent expensive missteps and surface issues before they become costly problems. There's also a civic benefit. They give residents a structured way to engage constructively and can reduce conflict later and build trust in decisions, ultimately making governance more stable. So I know some of you are weighing whether boards should exist only when needed and then dissolve, and I think that's a smart question, and the right answer depends on the nature of the issue. If something is a one-time policy task or a temporary board makes sense. If it's an ongoing thing or operational that requires continuous improvement, then a standing board with a narrow, clearly defined mandate may actually be more efficient. Energy spending is a good example. You know, I've spoken about the ECC before, and I think it's not a one-time project. It's a long, ongoing need of the city, spanning departments. And if the ECC would be reestablished, I would think you would support a really tight mandate, asking it to reduce city energy costs by a defined amount each year, and then report transparently, measure ROI, look at savings. And if it isn't bringing savings, then sunset it. If it is, then keep it. And all of our boards I think, should operate in that manner. So in summary, I support the review of city boards, and I think it's a wise thing to do as a system engineer. And some might stay, some might go, some might need to be adjusted, and it's good to look at them. So thank you, and thanks for serving.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, members of the council and the mayor. My name is Jeff Kettleson. I live in the 5th Ward of Billings, and I'm a voting member of the public. I'm here to speak concerning the water service to Meadowlark Trailer Park. From what I understand, this property is not inside of our city limits. And because of that, I have great concerns that we're offering our city services to a piece of property that we're not going to get property tax value back from. The other concern that I have about this, I believe the last time that this came before the city council, the owner of the property mentioned that he had a prohibited business in his property that this water would supply it to. I have severe concerns that we're giving city services to a business that the residents of Billings have voted not to allow in our city. And what I'm specifically talking about is a marijuana grow facility. Now, what's before us tonight is giving water to supposedly a trailer park, but if you really look deep into this, we're actually, the trailer park, from what I understand, gives also water to a number of businesses. And, you know, that has never really come up before the council. And because the trailer park provides all these businesses water, I think that you're doing a disservice to all the businesses that directly compete against the businesses that are over there on this gentleman's property. So number one is, I think that you should not give city services to a banned business, a marijuana grow facility. And number two, I think that the way that it's presented, that we're only doing it for a trailer park, is hiding the fact that we're actually providing it for a number of businesses over there. So I strongly recommend that we vote this down. Thank you very much.
Any other public comment? Seeing none, I'll close this portion of our hearing and we'll move to the first item on the agenda. City Administrator Kukulski, would you like to talk about it first?
Sorry, Mayor, I thought I had it on the screen. Let me just pull it up and make sure we're covering the right way. So first up is the question of provisional services of water, sewer service area expansion and annexation. So Mac Fogelsong, our city engineer, I've gone over the presentations a few times. You've had the packet material. He's going to take these one at a time. ABC as we outlined, but it's one presentation. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mac. And as he's getting set up, I think it was with the previous council that the Meadowlark Mobile Home Park is the second kind of a follow-up conversation to one that was had late in the prior council's tenure. So again, as Mac's kind of getting set up, as he's set up there, I will turn it over to Mac to present and have us move forward.
Great, thank you, Chris. Mayor and Council, good evening. So a little agenda slide here. I tend to simplify things, maybe sometimes too much, but I want to talk a little bit high level about what is the process by which a property obtains water and sewer service. And then obviously the catalyst for this meeting, we have three sites that have asked for that. So we'll get into those. I'll step through each one of those individually, probably pause at the end of each one for some discussion, then we'll move on to the next one. And then ultimately what we're looking for from each of those sites, if you will, or some direction from council staff, go out and decide whether or not you need to ask them for annexation or not. And then also whether you're going to would provide water or sewer service or both to those sites. So a little bit high level, and a reason I want to have a little policy discussion here, periodically staff, we are aware of some other sites that are out in the county. So this is something I want to kind of, it may not be today, it might be 3 years from now, 5 years from now, but there will be other, it's a case of when there will be other sites that are asking these same questions that are probably developed in the county already. So going back to how typically we provide sites with water and sewer, many of those are greenfield, undeveloped sites. They're typically annexed. What's the tool that we use? It's the annexation policy, and the tool is the limits of annexation map. So if you recall the green area, I have a slide in a second, that the green area is the slide that kind of aligns with our 5-year capital improvements plan. So those are integrated together. we're ready to serve those properties, and we have any capital plans associated with those figured out. So what about existing developed sites in the county? That's what we're talking a little bit about tonight. So back to our limits of annexation map, the green zone, that's that area where we anticipate service. There are also areas outside the map. 2 of the sites tonight are outside that map. So how would they sort of be annexed? Council could allow that property to be annexed if they went through an urban planning study. And then I also noted another note here, you know, and this is getting into planning's world a little bit, but council can also direct changes to this map annually and add or subtract areas, or say, hey, we want to focus on this new area for annexation. Council can change the map. So here's our current limits of annexation map. Zone 1 is that area that folks can petition to annex in the green. Zone 2 is that long range area that we say, okay, that's somewhere we may go. And then there's the other areas that's kind of in the beige color, if you will. I circled the 3 sites on the map just for context. The one to the north, higher up on the map, that's the McDougal site that's in the green. The 2 that are in the red circle to the south, one of those is Meadowlark and one of those is the Blaine property. So I gave everybody a cheat sheet, this little guy. I can't take credit for this. City Legal, we worked hard with. They came up with the flow chart to try to simplify the city code so that we have a better, us engineers, we need a little diagram or we can't think straight. So this is the process by which you expand for water and sewer service area. And so the first question is, you know, do you want to serve this property with water or sewer? Yes or no? The one option there is no, and process is over. If you do want to serve a property with water and service, then the next question is, do you want to annex that or not? You go down the left side with our standard annexation process, or no, if there was some reason why you would waive requirements of annexation, you kind of go down the right path. So tonight, obviously, we have service requested from 3 sites. I know there's representatives in the audience that if you have questions that we can ask from the property owners. These are the 3 sites, and I will chip through these one by one. So starting with Meadowlark Manufactured Home Park, that's the area shaded in red. Yellowstone River to the north, Blue Creek Road kind of cuts down into the east there. To the east is a subdivision with the water lines there. The little blue line to the south of the Meadowlark there, that's our city landfill drop-off facility. The blue line kind of indicates the water line that goes to the drop-off facility for context. Just zooming in on the manufactured home court, we have approximately 220 units in there. And then I also point out the existing sewer line that's in Jellison Road for context. And that's the sewer line that serves the court today, city sewer. So some of the talking points to Meadowlark, what's some of the background? Obviously, they've had some drinking water quality issues. They went out and found some money from DEQ. DEQ requires a government sponsor, if you will. So there is some benefit to that water line I'll get to in a minute. I put some costs in there. That's about $2.4 million that DEQ is essentially paying for the water line. Currently, we provide the sewer service, and then just reiterating that point that it is outside the green zone, if you will, on the annexation map. So the city benefit to the water main. This is the map I showed you before. This is the extent of my animation. But this is the water main that jumped on the screen that would be installed theoretically with the grant money. And what's the benefit to that? Remember, the water line loops around to the drop-off facility to the south, so it would provide a future sort of looping for that water line, water quality, fire protection. So that those are the main benefits of that. It would also provide fire protection to the entrance of the landfill. So kind of looking at the process, back to the cheat sheet here. Left side is the annexation, right side would be waive annexation requirements. There's a few tools there. One, if the council decided that property should be annexed, they could do the urban planning study, annexation agreement. I do want to note that in either case, we would probably recommend, as the gentleman pointed out, that we learned of the grow facility. We would probably cut off we would write in those agreements that we're not serving those, the consecutive, whoever and wherever they may be, that those get discontinued. We have some other agreements there, the consecutive water service agreement, an agreement with DEQ to commit to the grant funds, and then the design and construction contract. Those are fairly similar on the right side. The only difference would be the sort of those waiver of annexation requirements. So what are some of the considerations? And I know the emergency services gentlemen, they're in the back there, so if you have questions for them with some of this detail, they helped us with some of this cost and call information. At the last meeting in December, I think there were some questions like, can you come up with a balance sheet? Is there a net positive or net negative? The answer is I'm not very good at that, but we took a good stab. The first one is, hey, there are a lot of emergency calls here. We tried to put a cost to those as if they were served by city personnel, if they were annexed. So fire provided some costs on sort of that equivalent 2025 number of calls, $30,000 to $40,000. And then PD tried to estimate, this is a very tough one. If all the calls to Yellowstone County Sheriff's Office were all an hour, that's the cost, but obviously you don't know what you're getting into. Over on the plus side, there is some tax revenue, 126,000 street maintenance fees that would be generated. There's the upside of the water main protection. Back to some other what I call downside, and that is emergency response. Inside the court, there aren't any fire hydrants. I called it narrow roads. We'd have to figure out what those are. And then obviously emergency services, not in support of that. So now we're kind of to the discussion part, back to those two questions. Does the council want to theoretically provide water service? And then if yes, do you go through the annexation process or the waiver of annexation requirements? And I guess, Mayor, I'd open that up to discussion or questions.
Thank you, Mac. You say we have representatives here too from...
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, so I'm going to look at a council. Would you like to have questions for Mac first, or would you like to hear from the representatives?
I just had one question for Mac on the presentation. Mac, when you showed the pictures of the sewer line, and then you showed the pictures of where the water line is expected to go, it looked to me like the water line is going to be much longer. Is that correct? Because it looks like the sewer line just goes to the edge of their property, but the water line goes well past their property.
That's correct, and I think it's just the water line kind of goes more to that far entrance there. Also, probably the entrance to the landfill is what we would look at. The sewer is a pressurized line, I think, that comes out the east side, so it is a little longer. Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Any other questions for Mac? CMS later.
So this is more of a global question around process. And maybe this is for Gina Legal. Can council bypass the urban planning study requirements? And those are ordinance based. They're not state law requirements or statutory requirements or anything like that. That's our process that we've adopted. Can the council push past that urban planning study requirement and adjust the map, include that in a green zone, and then in a next step, approve an annexation agreement. Because we only do the urban planning process once a year in the fall, adding considerable time to these kind of applications. If annexation is the way we go with things theoretically outside the green zone, can we do that?
Councilmember Aspenleiter, I'm going to lean on Wyeth here to answer this question, but if council goes through this process in Article 26-200 and determines that it wants to annex the property and it's not within the area on the map, then I believe that that map will need to be amended because it has the authority to do so under the section. But I am going to let Wyeth address that a little bit in more detail because I'm not familiar with the urban planning studies section of the code. I don't have it memorized clearly.
Councilmember Aspenleiter, Mayor and Council, and yeah, I understand this came up, I think, this morning in some conversation too with the mayor and deputy mayor and such. The answer is yes. What the council could do is amend the map. You have the discretion to amend the map, put it into the green zone, put it into whatever zone you want to, and then that would enable the process if you put it into the green zone, then for the property owner to come in and petition to annex. And basically the analysis of that impact would be, if you're amending the map as the city, is that the city is determining what those impacts are instead of the property owner.
So just to follow up to that, Wyeth, does this have to happen at separate meetings, or can it be sometimes we approve something and once that's approved, go on to the second thing and then separated?
Councilmember Pittman and Mayor and Council. So a couple things, I guess. So your annexation committee is in the process of bringing some recommendations to you. Actually, we're scheduled for a work session in April, and then anticipating you would take action in May, amending the map, not related to this, but related to some other areas, both city recommended adjustments, and then we have one private property owner who's requesting a map amendment. So to answer that part, that is coming to you, and if this was going to be considered, then we would obviously include it with that. To your question, I guess beyond that, so after the map's amended, then the annexation could come as quickly after that as, everyone could get all their stuff together to do that. So I anticipate that could come relatively quickly. If we'd need to know for sure that we were amending the map before we would want to initiate that.
Mr. Kennedy.
Thank you, Mayor. Mac, is when you said the city DEQ agreement for grant funds, does that cover the water line and the water line into the subdivision to hook up every one of the households?
Councilmember Kennedy, the $2.3 million covers the water main from Blue Creek Road to the subdivision entrance, and then there's some apparatus that prevents backflow from coming from the private property into the city property, but it stops there. It doesn't go. It doesn't cross the property line to the private property line boundary, if you will. And it also covers any city staff costs or the consultant cost to design and administer the construction. So everything all the way up to the property line.
Mayor, follow-up question. Mac, then if the money does the water up to the subdivision, then it would there would need to be new pipes laid to each of the houses, correct?
My understanding is that I think the answer is no, but I would have to defer to the private property owner. They already have a distribution system, pipes from their wells that go into the individual homes. So I think the intent was to.
If that's the case, then they would have to quit pumping water, and that system would have to be an empty system, so it doesn't cause problems with the city water coming in, correct?
Yes, we would request the wells be disconnected from the that distribution system. That's a given. Yes.
Thank you.
Councilmember O'Donnell?
Thank you. So you have, it's a very comprehensive report. You indicated the revenue to the city from taxes and street fees and the expenditures for the police and fire. One of the things that I seem, in case I just missed it, what revenue would the city get from selling the water to that subdivision?
That would depend on kind of what their use is. Obviously, that's scalable on how much water they use based on rates there, sir. Yes.
We don't know that?
I don't know exactly. I can follow up with maybe getting with the water system on how much water they use. I don't have that answer tonight, but I could follow up with that.
Then one more question, if I could, Mr. Mayor, and that is, there would be some profit to the city from selling the water. Is that correct?
Mayor and council, I don't. Yeah, when you say profit, I think we're a service rate based, cost based. So the concept there that may be a balanced equal. I don't think we would say that the city is profiting off of that. That's the cost of supplying the water, if you will, which is a baseline, no different than anyone else in the city. Well, cost of service.
If I might, if we refuse to annex, this would be simply a sale, and any sale, except to residents of the city, should indicate a profit to the city. I should think if it's not a service to our residents, it's a service to someone else. It's a commodity, and it seemed to me that should be a profit center to the city, just the same way as the property taxes or anything else like that. So, if you don't have the information, that's fine. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any other questions for Mike? Like to hear from the representative.
Mayor, council members, thank you for the opportunity to answer any questions. My name is Jay Van Tassel. I'm with Meadowlark.
Can you give us a real brief history of what brings you here?
Yeah, absolutely. So as was mentioned by Mac, in 2021 we experienced some poor quality in water, and so we, there was a lot of investment that we put into a state-of-the-art filtration system, and so, but during that time, the DEQ recognized the poor quality and basically came to us with this opportunity. But as Mac mentioned, it has to go through a public entity or a sponsor, thus, you as the city being that sponsor. And so, we've been working with them since then, just to get everything accurate, working with the city, and we've gotten to this point where we just have the decision on, are we going to need to annex? Are we going to, get the waiver, or what the decision will be?
Councilmember Neese.
Thank you, Mayor. There's been a lot of questions as far as the different businesses you provide water out of your current system now. So once the city were to provide water, would you be completely removing your well system, closing that down?
We had discussed turning that into irrigation, but again, that would require a different distribution, understandably. But that's what we discussed. As far as servicing the other businesses, I don't believe that there would be an issue with that. We'd have to look at the agreements that was set up prior to us with the previous owner, and so we'd need to look at what the agreements are in there. But assuming that it's not, we supply to them about 3,000 to 5,000 gallons a month, so it's really not that
not a lot
much
that they
water.
couldn't truck in if they wanted to. Yeah.
What's that? Sorry.
Probably could truck it in if they wanted to.
Yeah.
Do you know if the DEQ requires you to give up your water rights?
I don't know that.
Okay,
I'm
and I
not
don't know
sure.
if this
I haven't
applies
heard
or
that.
not. Gina, you can look into this. This is under section 23.412 about disposition of water rights and under subdividers. Rights are usually severed and granted to the city during subdivision. So that may be something that would be part of the annexation or part of the process, depending on which way it goes. That just want to know if you had concern about that. I'm assuming if you're getting water from the city, you wouldn't need it, but like you say, there could be irrigation needs that outside the city. So I don't know if the DEQ requires that or not.
Yeah, I'm not sure on what the requirement would be, and I'd have to think through if that would be initially. I wouldn't imagine that would be too much of an issue.
Okay.
But
all right, thank you.
Councilmember Shaw.
Thank you. So we were here a couple months ago. One of my questions was about the filtration system, which sounds like it still has life on it, 8-10 years. Is that still accurate?
yeah, it should have a good lifespan still.
Okay. And then second question is the property owner willing to annex or waive the right to annexation? Because you didn't have an answer for that last time.
Yeah, I mean, I think our position is we're not opposed to annexation. We obviously there's a lot of discussions involved with annexation, so we need to figure out what that looks like. What would be the required upgrades, and to make sure that investment makes sense, or if it just makes sense to invest in the water system. Ultimately, the goal is to provide quality water to our residents, obviously. So it would just be a business decision at that point to determine what's required.
Okay, and then Mayor, I have a question for Mac, if that's all right.
That's all right.
Mac, I have a question for you. I'm struggling with this one in that on its face, to me, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, I understand there's this history of having provided sewer services. I get all of that. I don't like the idea of either annexing in a piece of property that's so far from our city limits or waiving it and setting that precedent for the county. So I feel like either of the two options I'm not loving. What I'd love to hear from you is what risk does the city have? I think you'd mentioned before that there's a chance DEQ could come back and just say, well, now the city, you are required to do this for whatever reason. Is that a risk that the city runs? Am I putting words in your mouth? Is my question clear enough?
Yes.
Okay.
Councilmember Shaw, you asked, does the city engineer think there's a risk of DEQ forcing that? I don't think I think that risk is low. I think there's some question over, timing of those DEQ funds. But I think we could probably figure out a path to success either down the left side of the chart or the right side of the chart fairly quickly here to where that risk is lowered.
Okay. I guess it's just.
I don't think, just to clarify my answer, I don't see a point at which DEQ would force that. Because I think that's unlimited. Do they say, hey, run a pipe to Laurel because you have to? I don't think that's a logical conclusion.
So I'm not trying to be heartless at all, just protective of the city's water. How is this the city's problem?
I don't have the direct answer. That's a fine question.
Ms. Aguirre?
Thank you. Could you help me understand, you mentioned earlier that the PD and FD are not in support of annexation. Can you help me understand that more?
Councilmember Agari and Mayor, that's probably better for those gentlemen to answer that question direct, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As far as our support for this, there's just a lot of unanswered questions. You saw our projections up there with the call volume that currently happens out there. 80 calls. Now, that was the bare minimum based on what resources we send out that way. what the exact calls were, but looking at the type of calls that came in, pretty much every one of those 80 calls would have prompted a call for our services out in that subdivision. Some of the more worrisome stuff would be access issues that are currently in that subdivision and how long it would take to fix some of the access issues that are in there, street width, stuff like that, that we normally require in subdivisions so we can get our apparatus around. Water supply, obviously it's not a hydrogen subdivision right now, so we don't have any water supply within the subdivision to have fire operations happen. So I don't know what length of time that would take to take place if we were to annex. Another concern for me is Blue Creek Fire Department currently serves that area. It's a big part of their budget and revenue. Have they been contacted and asked what the impact to them would be? So that is a worry for us. As their district gets smaller and smaller, more people are reaching out to us to come and cover more areas out there. And really just, all of the services that we provide or would have to provide after that, I just have some concern over that. So that's from the fire department standpoint, what our questions would be.
Councilmember Kennedy.
Chief, do you offer services out of Briarwood and then right across the road to Santiago and up in the hill?
We do. Santiago and Briarwood are both been annexed into the city. So obviously we provide all the services that we provide the city of Billings. When we look, I did actually look into Briarwood and that subdivision. So between those two and the highway all the way out to those, there was about 60 calls for service and we got canceled on about half of them. So the impact within just that small subdivision is much more. And we don't have the access issues. We don't have the water issues out there. But I don't have the history of when we annexed Briarwood in. It didn't make much sense to me now, but
I can give you a full history of it.
Sure.
Can't you do a dry hydrant there?
Excuse me?
Can't you put in a dry hydrant there?
You could, and that's just the questions that I would need answers on. I don't know what any of the plans are for that.
Because
so
that could be a piece on annexation to have a dry hydrant, which would be able to supply you with the water source.
Yeah, Councilperson Kennedy, think that's a good question. So within the city limits and if it were to be annexed in, it's very rare that we would allow a dry hydrant. We would want a hydrogen subdivision because with dry hydrants, as good as they are, they require a lot more of our apparatus to make them operate. So we have to station a pumper at the apparatus since it's not a pressurized water source. So our response would be more than it would typically be in the city limits if we were to allow a dry hydrant in that situation.
Another question on the point that you do have what are the an agreement with Blue Creek? Don't you have a what are they called? Mutual aid with Blue Creek Fire?
Yes, we do have a mutual aid agreement with Blue Creek. And so it'd probably switch the other way to where they would respond to help us if they were annexed in. But the reliability of the resources and the guarantee of those resources to come, it is mutual aid, but again, that's not a guaranteed resource for us. It's a nice to have, but not a guaranteed to have.
Just a point of history is all of that area was offered to come into the city way back when Briarwood and Santiago came in, and they decided at that time they did not want to come in. But at that time, the city said, yes, let's look at this. I think I'm going to have a difficult time of, we have folks in a water district out in the Heights, and that's something that's had some issues. And I think doing another district and putting water into a subdivision or whatever would create some problems too. So I think the one thing we're going to have to work out is it's either going to be an annexation or not. But thank you.
Where does this area get its water for fire protection at the present time?
Councilperson Dickelson, that's a great question. So in most cases, it's hauled water. So we have situations where we have to haul the water out there. Both Blue Creek and Billings Fire do have ways to haul water, drop tanks, and then go to find a water support and bring that water to any situation that we have in there. So all those situations, we're hauling water.
Any other questions? Councilmember Neese?
Chief, if this were annexed, I know you said you had concerns, but if the access were, they're two-way access like they have in Briar Creek, they have some special road to come in and out. Is that something that you feel that the fire department could service if it were annexed?
If I understand you right, Councilperson Neese, you're asking currently the way it exists, or if that's something that if
Yeah,
they
if
were
they put a second road in, I think that's really the concern.
yeah,
for
that's
access.
and I have our fire marshal here that deals with all of that piece of it, but obviously they could fix situations that are within the court right now, but how long that would be, it's concerning to us when we start to get our high dollar apparatus in there and can't get turned around or secondary access.
Okay, so that's really the biggest concern is turnaround and secondary access. Okay, thank you.
All right. Thanks, Chief.
Mayor, Council, good evening. Police Department doesn't do water, so that's kind of a irrelevant point to us. Our analysis essentially is just based on service capacity and what's the return of investment, simply. And as you saw from our statistics, that the sheriff's office handled the majority of the calls because it is in the county. Over 200 calls. We went there 13 times. That's probably looking for somebody. What I did is just extrapolated our pay scale for a 10-year officer. We're assuming at least 2 officers per call and averaging at the end of the day an hour a call for all of those calls. And you saw what the cost was, $33,000 or so. So the recommendation for us not to annex, regardless of the water issue, is because that area generates a high volume of calls relative to its size, and we don't see any tax benefit from that initially. Understand if you bring the property in that we're responsible for all city services out there, and we are continually getting stretched, pulling officers from the Corps. I want to make sure we understand this is not commentary or judgment on the neighborhood or the citizens in that particular area. There's just a lot of calls. And so that was a recommendation that, we're going other places. We just had 2 annexation requests on the west end, which are equally stretching of our resources. Mayor?
Thank you. Any questions for the chief? Councilmember Neese.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor and Chief. As you know, we had a very active mobile home park up in the Heights where we are from, and that changed management, and over time, that's not an issue with the Billings PD at this time.
No, but that took a lot of work to get it. Not problematic.
Right, and I think some of that's because it was maybe in the city and they could hear from the city. Now we have a call. I guess it's false alarm, but we have issues if there's a lot of calls. Do businesses currently, if they have a lot of calls, would this property be fined or anything like that for service calls?
Yes.
Okay, and so that could help with the management to understand that they have a high volume of call, and maybe by bringing this into the city, we could maybe, with management's help, work to alleviate the issues that we're having in the park at that time. Is that similar to what I'm hoping to, under a perfect world, overlay what happened up in the Heights, maybe into this subdivision or this mobile home park as well? Is that a potential possibility?
Certainly a possibility. Perhaps if they come under your guidance, then we won't have so many police calls.
Not mine
as
personally.
opposed to the commissioners back in the day. However, just don't know.
Okay.
But time would tell. The bottom line is there's a lot of calls for service on the law enforcement side.
And Mayor,
as it
another
stands, so.
quick call on this.
Yes, sir.
Mayor, you typically have 2 officers per zone, is that correct?
Yes, overlap.
Two
We
or
have
three,
overlap.
2 or 3, depending on how. So in this area that's servicing this area now, would you anticipate having to roll out additional unit for this, or is this you'd have to kind of move people where they're patrolling?
We would not, mainly because we don't have the additional assets to do that. It would fall in the same zone that covers Briarwood. And so again, we don't go to Briarwood very often, but it is in our area of responsibility. This would become the same.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Councilmember Kennedy?
Chief, I'm going to bring up a subject that I've been bringing up for a long time. We're probably about 10 or 12 officers down right now. If you had a full staff, could you do this?
We'd be much better situated. Again, it's all about response time and able to handle all the calls that are coming in. We are have a hiring process tomorrow, as a matter of fact. So hopefully we'll put a dent in that 10 deficient. But yes, the whole thing is that we don't want to get into a situation where we have to prioritize calls more than we already are. 911 can you hold is not acceptable. And so that's what we're trying to avoid. If we bring more properties in, more annexations, more developments without the commensurate resources, then we run the risk of having those situations arise.
Any idea when we'll be up to capacity?
And we'll be much better situated to not have that situation. And we're doing very well right now. But again, we keep bringing areas in and our resources stay stagnant.
Okay, we allocated for 8 more.
Correct.
2 years ago, and we still haven't hired them.
We are hiring them.
Okay, thank you.
Questions, Councilmember Pittman, then Ms. Shaw?
Thank you, Mayor, Chief. So the county and the sheriff's department would also serve this area?
They certainly could.
Okay.
Councilmember Shaw?
I was going to try and bring us back around because I think Mac was wanting some direction on each of these as we move through them, if that's accurate. I'm personally at a place where I would make a motion to direct staff to decline this application. And if there's a second, I'll speak to the motion.
Well, we need to give staff some direction as to where to go. The questions are: direct staff to move forward with providing water service through annexation, or direct staff to move forward without annexation, or provide direction not to provide water service to a Meadowlark Mobile Home Park. And so we do have a motion for direction. Is there a second? Councilmember Aguirre?
Mr. Mayor, I'm not clear what the motion entails exactly.
So Councilmember Shaw has moved that we provide direction not to provide water service to Meadowlark Mobile Home Park. And Councilmember Aguirre has seconded that. So some discussion, Ms. Shaw?
Sure. Yeah, I'll speak to it. Again, I'm not trying to be a heartless, water baron, but I agree with the fire chief in looking back. And I understand, different councils make different decisions for different reasons. But in hindsight, looking back, to me, the city made a big mistake annexing in Briarwood, Ironwood, and Reberg Ranch when they did. This feels to me like a continuation of that same policy, and I don't think it's been for the betterment of the city. It's stretched resources so far, as we've heard from both chiefs. So responsibly, I think this isn't adjacent to city land. I think it'd be bonkers to try and annex it when there's so much distance between us. I could maybe live with a waiver of annexation, but I think to me that sets up a precedent for why don't we do this for other subdivisions in the county, which concerns me. So that's why I think we should decline this application.
Other discussion? Councilmember Aspenlater?
And I guess I was looking to have kind of the policy level question after all 3 of these, but we can do it on each one as well. I think the question for us is, if people are going to use our services, are we going to require them to annex? And to me, that the answer probably should be yeah. If you want our water, if you want our sewer or something of that nature, then you got to annex. The best thing that we can do as council is to give staff some guidance that, hey, this is a consistent policy direction that if you want water, then you have to apply for annexation. And then we can discuss the merits of the annexation. at that point in time. And that would be how I would respond to all three of these instances. If you want the service, then annex the property. If you don't want to annex the property, then we're not going to give you the services and you got to figure out your own problem. And then we can have a conversation about whether we want to do this or not. You know, there will inevitably be some kind of unique situation in which we provide water to something like the refinery. I don't think that's awesome either. We had that conversation when we went through the rate stuff, but I think if you want our services, then submit an annexation application and we can discuss the merits of the annexation application. So for me, I'm not going to support this proposal because I would like all of these to just provide an annexation application. I think we have to give some clear direction to Wyeth as they're going through the annexation map amendments coming up here in April. If we would like to see these apply, then we probably should change them to the green area, and then have that done so that they can formally do that process and come apply once that's done. But my position would be all three of these properties apply for annexation.
Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to withdraw the motion if it's better to wait till the end. I was just trying to follow what staff had asked for of direction after each one, but I don't mind withdrawing it.
Mr. Boyette?
So with that in mind, I'd like to give direction to staff that says, have the planning department look at moving these properties into the green area so that it's easier for them. Make sure that DEQ funds are still available regardless of how this, and that we shouldn't annex them unless that is guaranteed, and ask them to apply for annexation. I agree that it's like, put your application in so we can review it. We may approve it, we may not, but at least they put in their application. But one more last thing, I gotta say this. I was on the zoning commission for 10 years. I repeatedly asked the police and fire department, are you okay with this new zoning? And they never said no. And then I said, well, what happens when all these things come together? Now it's becoming to the point is, so the next annexation, the next people that want to bring in a property, will the fire and the police department say, no, they're too far away, we don't have enough staff? I mean, at some point, how do we figure this out? But that was my motion, is to give direction to staff.
So, Ms. Shaw, do you still want to withdraw your?
I do. If there's going to be a motion, I don't want to withdraw mine. I want to move forward with it.
Councilmember Neese?
Yeah, I won't support the motion as submitted. I think the other, besides that, I agree with Councilmember Aspenleiter on this. The other concern is if we deny the application, it's a year before anything can be done. That's the ordinance. So I prefer not to deny it. I would like to see this property, and I don't want to speak to the other property yet because we haven't even heard the presentations on these yet. So I think I want to be careful about only talking about this property.
Agreed.
Okay, how about this? I'll withdraw the motion. Can we hear the other two applications first before we make any other motions? Can we live with that?
Mr. Boyette, you okay with that?
Let's just do these all as a package would be my suggestion or request. I mean, they're all the same. They're different distances, but
one moment, Mr. O'Donnell.
Let's just deal with these all at one time. I mean, this is a policy decision. It's not one-on-one. That's where we get ourselves in trouble saying, no, we're going to do this, but yes, we will do that. Let's just deal with these as a package would be my request.
So I'll wait for my motion till we're finished to do the same motion.
All right. Mr. O'Donnell?
Thank you. I'm very uncomfortable with taking them as a package, but provide individual because, for instance, take the was it McDougal, which is really within the general sphere of the city. It's just a little appendage that's surrounded by a city and north of the freeway, so it's contiguous to the rest of the city. Meadowlark is an entirely different situation. The 80 calls that the sheriffs plus the 13 that the city did, that may result only in $30,000 or $40,000, but that's that's 80 calls or so that the police are not able to cover in the city. That is, I respect greatly the testimony of the chiefs, the fire chief and the police chief, that it would be stretching things way too thin. This is not within the green area or the orange area, the pink area, or any there. It's not in any area at all. And I think it's going way beyond our ability to service properly. Our commitment is to the safety of the people of the city of Billings. And by stretching out the area like this, I think it's compromising that commitment to security that we are able to provide. And as everyone knows, we could greatly enhance the ability of the police and the fire department, although they do an extraordinarily good job. But they are fiscally constrained as much as the city is fiscally constrained. In regards to Meadowlark, then, I would be very happy with providing the water. If we have it to provide without jeopardizing our ability to provide water to the people of Billings. That's our focus, and we need to keep a focus on that. I'm willing to go over that. In terms of annexation, we do not need that headache. We do not need that area. It is far from the main part of the city. We don't need to compound errors that have already been made. So I see a great difference between those two properties. One, I would agree to annex, the other not. The other one, the Blair property that the animal shelter sits on right now, if they're willing to pay all of the costs involved in it, then I'm perfectly willing to provide
Mayor,
those.
point of order. We have a motion on the table,
Yeah,
and
thank you.
unless that motion's been pulled, I didn't hear it pulled from the second. It has to be both movement and second.
Okay,
And until that's done, we need to address the motion of denial of the application.
agreed, but we do need to let people finish what they're saying before we jump in. So, Ms. Aguirre, are you okay with removing the motion? Okay, so we are now at a spot where we can decide, should we take all three of these as a package together?
The two presentations.
Or should we hear the other two presentations, take them one at a time? You guys want to hear the other two and then make a policy decision? Okay. I think we're there finally.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. It's kind of moving moving to property number 2, what we're calling the Blaine property. For reference, Blue Creek Road is on the right. Meadowlark Manufactured Home Court is on the left. The property is outlined in red here, adjacent to Jellison Road. We'll zoom in here with the next slide. So here's I labeled Meadowlark to the left. Jellison Road is the frontage. You have the 3 buildings on the site, and then there again, the existing sewer line. This property has requested to connect to that existing city sewer. A little bit of the background, we have an owner of a single lot along Jellison Road. Currently, they haul water to that site via cistern, and then they have a septic system. They did petition the city for the sewer service. Similar to Meadowlark, this is outside of the limits of annexation map there. So back to those two themes that we're doing tonight. Left side, annexation. I listed the tools there, annexation agreement being the main tool. On the right-hand side, there would be a sewer service agreement if you were to waive annexation. So what are kind of back to the debits and credits, if you will, things to consider. Given it's a single property in the use, likely a low number of emergency service calls. We estimated some tax revenue, courtesy of finance, about $9,000 a year. Street maintenance fees of about $2,800. Then pointed out, maybe one reason not to annex is that it's not contiguous to the city. But staff couldn't come up with any significant reason not to annex. So that's a staff point, and I understand that's not a council point, but just something to think about.
Mr. Aspenleiter?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Mac, on this one, if we went down the annexation path and we said, hey, if you're going to get services, you're going to annex, and we don't extend the water to that, to the Meadowlark property, and we can't provide water, can we force annexation if we're not going to provide water service? Or can we agree to annexation if we're not going to provide water service, we're only going to provide sewer service? I know that's similar to what we do in the Heights, but different.
Councilmember Aspenleiter, Mayor and Council, I'm not aware of any rule that says you have to have both services in order to be annexed, that the city has to supply it.
Okay, so maybe let me ask it this way. If we annex them and at some point they say, hey, we're annexed, we can't haul water anymore, you got to provide us water service, is there any kind of liability associated with us having a property annexed that we cannot service with water?
I'm not aware of, historically for me, I think it's perfectly reasonable. I've seen cities in the past say, you want water, the water main is 1,000 feet away or a half a mile or 2 miles away. We'll let you extend it at our standards to your site, but I haven't seen the city having a liability to supply a water pipe to every property inside the city limits.
That would be my assessment too. I just wanted to make sure that was clear as we go down that path. Thank you.
Any other questions for Mac?
So obviously, same two questions. Here's the theme tonight, and I suppose we can discuss these after the third site if it's your pleasure.
Is the applicant here?
I believe there is a representative. Yes.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. My name is Dax Simic with Staley Engineering, and just here representing the animal shelter tonight. Be happy to address any questions you have or give you a little summary of how we got to this point.
Summary would be nice.
So the Blaines offered this facility to the animal shelter as a temporary use while they're looking for a permanent home. And we reached out to the city to see if we could connect to the forest main out there in Jellison Road. We're told we'd have to annex to connect to the city services. Since we are not in zone 1 or 2, that's not an option. So we've kind of pursued the service without annexation process, and that's kind of how we ended up here this evening.
Any questions? Councilmember Neese?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'm sorry, did you say you're representing the animal shelter, not the applicant, the Blaines?
Well, both, yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. I wasn't sure when you said you're representing, so you're actually representing the Blaines.
Yes.
They're the ones, okay. And you talked to them about the possibility of annexation, or they?
Yep, they didn't seem to have any heartburn with that possibility.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Boyette? That was your question? Okay. Any other questions for the applicant? Councilmember Aguirre?
Thank you. Maybe this is a question for Trinity, but could you help us understand the pros and cons to annexing or not?
Thank you, Council. Am I close enough? There we go. Thank you, Mayor and Council. I would say pros and cons to annexing. I don't necessarily know that there are any, other than that we are excited to put in an application for the RFP to continue providing services to the city through animal sheltering services, and we can do a better job and a more efficient job providing those services if we had access to sewer. So right now we are doing everything, I call it Little House on the Prairie style. So it's very, very, it's not efficient, but we're doing fine. Basically what we're saying is that we would love to see the city support us in this next chapter so that we can work towards a really great partnership and we can continue to provide those services. I did pull some data, and about 70% of the animals that we bring in and we serve are from the city of Billings limits. So, you know, to kind of counter this concept of like, is it the city's problem? I mean, I guess not, but I do have to figure out how to do the work efficiently, and I already run a very lean operation. So I would appreciate the opportunity to do it even more efficiently.
Thank you. Any questions?
But annex versus not annex, again, that's a council choice.
Thank you.
Myself and
Any
our
questions for
properties,
Trinity? No. Thank you. Any further questions for Mac? All right, then let's move on to the McDougall subdivision.
Okay, Mayor and Council, this is the McDougall Drive property map. I kind of outlined the entire area. I'll zoom in and it'll change a little bit. I try to just get the focus on the general location here. This is north of I-90. Immediately west of this is Kings Green subdivision. You can see the new buildings to the south of the interstate for context there. Zooming in a little bit, Washington Street is on the left. The city limits are Washington Street, so everything to the left of the map is city limits. McDougall Drive is an existing county public dedicated street. This particular owner owns 7 lots around that I outlined in red there, has various manufactured homes on them. We'll get into a summary here in a minute, but that's where we're located. So 7 lots on the public gravel street. Those units are on water wells and septic systems. What's the catalyst? They're having some challenges there with DEQ. They did petition for services. Now, the difference between this property and the rest of the properties, this one is in the green zone, if you will, sort of ready for annexation. Water and sewer is in Washington Street at the intersection of McDougall Drive, so ready for extension, if you will. This area is also currently served by BUFSA, City Fire, if you will. It's in the Billings Urban Fire Service area. And then we did a little homework. They had about 2 calls in 2025, so even though it's in the county, it's not a high service call demand location. Same sort of 2 slides here. Annexation on the left, wave annexation on the right. I'll point you to, from a staff's position with an annexation agreement. Obviously, these are ultimately council decisions, but we would probably recommend that street be paved and potentially a sidewalk, maybe on one side, since it's a cul-de-sac. But those are some thoughts we had if you were to go through the annexation agreement. Just some considerations back to the credits and debits concept. It's in the green. Public Works, there wouldn't be any, those service extensions would be paid for by the owner, the emergency calls, and then the tax revenues and the street maintenance fees, $5,300 and $3,300. And then we couldn't, as a staff, come up with material reasons not to annex for this property. So back to the same 2 questions, Mayor.
Any questions, Mr. Boyette?
Thank you, Mayor. Mac, let's say this becomes part of the city, and then 2 years from now, we got all those other little properties say, "Oh my goodness, I want to be in there." What would be how would they have to petition again to become into the city? Though, I mean, how would that work?
Great, Councilmember Boyette. So let's see. I think there's 7 other properties, round numbers. Those properties would have to petition to annex. No different than these properties. Follow the process.
Councilmember Shaw.
Sorry, thank you. Mac, why is this coming to us like this and not just as an annexation petition?
Councilmember Shaw, yeah. Honestly, I feel a little guilty bringing this forward, but these particular property owners were also aware of the Metal Arc project and the Blaine. And so they're in their mind that I think there was a question over whether the city would extend services. Maybe I know they're different, but I guess we're also looking for a consistent policy direction on this one. So,
Okay, I mean, I'm going to pass the ball to Councilmember Aspenleiter to make a motion on the overall policy, but to me, this just seems bizarre that we would see it. It's in the green zone. Why we would see it come through some side process versus the actual.
Councilmember Pittman?
So I guess just to start this conversation, this proves the point of if we start down the slippery slope, then why join the city if you'll get the water or the sewer for free? This is simply tonight a policy and a consistency motion. It doesn't have to be yes or no on anything. It's, are we going to stay consistent with every property that wants our services? Do you want to annex in? If you do, we'll give you the services. All of the other two, you could play this little connect the dots all day long. And if you don't get this part, then this part doesn't fit. And then you have the third one that says, well, I don't want to join if I don't have to, but if I have to, I will, which actually then encourages maybe the other ones to do the same thing. So all three of them for me are simply annex if you want the services, otherwise not.
Councilmember Aspenleiter.
So I'll make a motion because we're getting very close to my bedtime at 7:30.
Yeah, we have 42 minutes.
Yeah, 42. So let's keep it moving. I'll move to give staff direction, follow the annexation policy. If somebody wants services, then submit an annexation application. Only under very unique circumstances would we be willing to consider a waiver of right to protest.
Second.
Councilmember Neese seconds. Okay, any discussion regarding the motion? Councilmember Boyette. Councilmember Shaw.
But I don't want to just be adding properties to the green zone willy-nilly because we have a petition or, a request for it, that doesn't make sense to me because that's such an important planning document. So I guess my question to staff would be, what is the process that somebody could go through if council's direction is, nope, you've got to annex to get our services and they're outside the green zone, what's next for them?
Wyeth, you want to come forward? Help us out.
Councilmember Shaw and Mayor and Council, at this point, the one property's in, so that's not an issue. The two that are not, since they're outside entirely, they would be looking at asking to be brought into first the green area for eventual potential annexation, and they would be going through the study process and everything. And I have to look, I need to check the policy too, because there is some language there where you also can bring properties all the way in. It was done anyway. There's a option there to keep it flexible, so there is that option to go all the way from white to green without the urban planning study. So I can check that, but that would be normally what would have to happen.
So there is a path for them. It's just maybe not as simple as a council vote, but there is a path that they could explore.
Right. Okay. Yeah, they would have to go. Yeah, it could be a multi-step, and to get to that.
Thank you. I'm happy to support the motion.
Councilmember Aspenleiter, then Mr. Pittman. Councilmember Pittman.
So, Wyeth, when we annexed in, or the former council annexed in Briarwood, this was a large swath. The whole point was to annex all these properties in to help pay as this builds towards Briarwood, correct? And that this, and like Councilmember Kennedy said, this property at the time said, no, thank you. So that's why it got removed from that swath. It's not that it's just prohibited, it's just that they opted out at the time. So it's not inconsistent with the growth policy that the council had in providing services all the way to Briarwood.
Councilmember Pittman and Mayor and Council, some of what you're talking about, I'm not aware of what that backstory was. Briarwood had issues with their treatment system, and there was a lot of with their sewer system, and then also dealing with the state and stuff. So I don't know exactly how that all went down. I don't recall how much of the area was offered to be brought in at that time. So I'm not sure about that. But I don't think, I mean, the city has amended the map itself, and then it's also made amendments that have been requested. So you've done both things around the city in different situations, but it's gone through that map process.
Councilmember Neese.
Thank you, Mayor. I think this is the right approach, but the other, as was mentioned in the motion, the idea is if it's an exceptional reason, I mean, these are by policy denied and they shouldn't be coming to us as has been discussed, but the only one of any of these three that fit is the trailer court that's looking at a sizable grant to extend the water service. And that would be during the annexation process. And so, again, I think if we poll everyone, we probably want to see it annexed, because this land is eventually going to come to the city. And the more we have out there, the more we develop that road. Yeah, it's not the prime spot to develop because the city dump is across the street, but it is going to allow development along that corridor that we wanted to get between Briarwood and the city. So this is just a start, but this is, that one would be at least, if anything, just to make sure we have that grant secured, is to allow that process to move forward without inhibiting that. But I would like to see, I'll support this motion so that it goes through the annexation process first, and then get an idea how long it's going to take before they can get the state grant.
Okay, Councilmember O'Donnell.
Thank you. As I understand, the motion is to direct the staff to only entertain annexation applications in this Meadowlark situation, because I think it was Chief Hopple pointed out that the volunteer fire department relies very heavily upon the revenue generated from that, and it would be very damaging to them to lose that revenue if they were not the primary servicing agent for that. So I think that the motion, if I understand it correctly, would preclude anybody providing applications for water or sewer without annexation. I think that like in this particular case, it would show that that would be an unwise procedure. So clarification, is my understanding of the motion correct?
Councilmember Aspinall, you want to comment to that?
If you're going to get the services, you're going to annex into the city. That's the motion. Pretty straightforward. No exceptions. That's the motion.
Councilmember Pittman.
I just have one more comment. The other thing that we have to keep in mind is this is about the property, not the businesses on the property. Once we give them the services, we have no control. They could build whatever they want or not build, or so pay attention to the fact that this is simply about the property itself.
Okay. So we understand the motion. Are we done with discussion? You want to move forward to vote on recommendations to staff? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay.
No.
Councilmember O'Donnell votes in the negative and is passed. So we're going to move on to item number 2, disposition report from Gavin. And now for the council, this is a little bit like the one we just heard, in that there are several different things that we could delve into. But I think what Gavin is looking for is more guidance as to what he should do with the property, rather than us jumping into every single parcel and telling him what to do. So let's keep that in mind as we go forward.
Kevin, you got 30 minutes before I turn into a pumpkin.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We'll go from annexing to the other end of the spectrum, disposal. So kind of a little bit of history here. This conversation goes all the way back to 2014. Most of the documents that I reviewed for this are not germane to this conversation. It's just for context only. That being said, I do believe that when we discuss Lampman Park, it is important to understand that in 2013, a resolution was passed to sell that property already. 2014, it was rezoned, so there is an ordinance already established with that as well. So as I said, since 2004, this conversation has taken place in one way or another up to this point. I would like to congratulate the team that came together to this, for the simple reason this is the furthest it's ever come, is the actual generation of a report since 2004. The scope of this report is really important to understand for tonight's conversation. The scope or the directive from council was for us to generate a report. The report itself does not address how to dispose of the land, whether through sale, land swap, donation, or anything like that. Those notes are part of the recommendation, but ultimately that'll be for the 11 of you to decide later on. It's also important to note that of all the properties that we looked at, and we did look at every single one of them, I took the liberty of basically making a quote unquote phase one of how to best address this. Phase one looks at properties that both the property disposition committee and the parks board voted to dispose of, okay? That then was coupled with, from the realtors, from the experts, saying that there was a value for these lands and also a higher desirability for development on those lands. So phase one would allude to that there's a phase two. There's also a phase three. Basically, what I hope to do with this is to get our legs underneath us to how to actually address this, because they just get harder after this phase, to be quite honest. As you look at my executive summary, this really stemmed out of the October 2025 board meeting, where that council said, previous park director said, here's this maintenance issues, all of that. Council said, hey, if we're having maintenance issues with our lands, let's look at this. So we did. The committee was ultimately created. It was composed of representatives from council. Those representatives, unfortunately, are not part of council any longer. Community stakeholders and city staff. This group met 9 times between April and October 2025. Its goal was to balance fiscal responsibility with public interest in preserving open space while identifying properties that could be sold or managed differently to address maintenance funding challenges. Based on committee input and professional real estate evaluations, again, phase one was created. These properties were developed for council consideration. After the November 2025 election, this process was put on hold until 6 of you were seated so that you could come into this. So I fully understand that 6 of you have not heard this conversation. However, I'm sure you've heard it in one guise or another because it's been around since 2004. One thing I want to stress with this, again, my board has their own opinions. My Parks Board has their own opinions. I did stress to my Parks Board, and Councilmember Neese was at the meeting, that the ultimate deciding factor of what to do with these said properties resides with the 11 of you. My board, the disposition committee, my office, we are nothing but data points to the overall decision that all of you decide to do with these properties. That being said, I would be remiss if I did not stress that my board, if parklands are sold, we have 7 of the 11 listed are parks properties. They request that those sales, those proceeds from those sales remain in the department and either go toward maintenance and or some type of budgeting future focused. That is not yet to be determined what that budgeting would be. I would say this just to kind of breadcrumb a little bit. In the next couple of months, I'll stand before you again with a whole new easement, or excuse me, a cash in lieu policy or proposal on how to use those monies. This would be part of it. So that's just a little breadcrumb. As you'll notice also that there are two properties, Ramada Park and Daniels Park, that the disposition and or the Parks Board said, don't sell it outright. We should sell partial only. What that means or what that determined in the way of definition of partial has not been established. So that was just something, again, for you all to consider. I think the best way to kind of look at this right now is if I can get the presentation up. Mr. Iflin, I may ask for your help. I think the best thing to do is to go property by property to hear your opinions. Oh, wait a second. I put it in, but the thing's not in there. Oh, yeah. And this one right here. And there we go. Perfect. Okay. So again, the experts are in the room. The realtors are in the room. If you have questions about this, every property listed on this document kind of follows the same pattern with a location, an acreage, a zoning, a brief description, and then a recommended price for this. As we go through here, for instance, on this one, this is Career Center Park. One thing that is listed into the report is also what kind of maintenance do we currently expend on this space. For this particular one, the current maintenance is 0 that we actually expend on this space. And the reason why I bring that up is that prior council, that was obviously part of the directive, is if we're spending all of this maintenance monies, what are we getting in return if we actually get rid of these properties, okay? I will tell you this, of the 7 of the 11 listed properties, the maintenance savings is about $13,500 annually only. So, I don't know what your pleasure is. If we go through these one by one and discuss, again, the goal here would be for the 11 of you to say, yes, these are the properties we want to have in a forthcoming resolution to dispose of. Again, not how to dispose. The timeline of that would be as such. On March 23rd, I'd put out a public notice for the April 13th public hearing and resolution of these properties.
Here, I think Council Member Lindley was first in line with a question.
Yeah, just a, excuse me, a point of clarification. So, and I think you kind of hit on it. So the annual maintenance on these properties, $13,500. Best case scenario, if we sold them all at the top dollar, $2 million. I'm trying to understand the math here of getting rid of $2 million worth of assets for when we're only spending $13,000 a year. I know this is a former council deal, but so anyway, I guess I'm kind of staying at a high level here for a second because being new on council, I'm just trying to wrap my head around this.
So I guess the question would be, why do we want to sell these?
Could I answer that, Mayor?
Yeah,
just to say,
sure.
We didn't actually have the maintenance information. So the previous council, this is new for us. That was part of what we were asking for was how much does this cost? Because we didn't have any idea.
Okay, Mayor. Hold on just a second. Gavin, I think, was it this morning at our orientation, you said this is one of 5 presentations you're going to bring to us about land?
3.
3, okay. So then, Mr. Aspenline and then Mr. Neese.
So I leaned into this one, and this is something I pushed on very hard and very heavy to get to this point. We have some data now. We have some answers now. I think part of the context around this is a lot of these lands were donated. There are no SIDs in place to actually assess properties, to actually build them out. The reality that the city is ever going to build them out is almost zero. Some of them, like Lampman, have been asked multiple times if they would take an SID to formally build it out and have declined. So here we sit with, technical assets on a balance sheet with liability attached to it. But what I also want us to remember is there are opportunity costs lost here also. These things get turned back to the private sector. They get added to the tax rolls, and now they also start generating revenue. So it's not just a $13,000, cost associated with it. It's also what we're losing in tax revenue to the general fund on these properties on top of the $2 million sales. So it's important to keep that piece in mind as well. If these are assets that we have no line of sight on ever developing out to provide value like they were intended when they were dedicated, then, why are we continuing to let them sit? Especially when some of these neighborhoods have declined to pay for the development of them.
Councilmember Neese.
Councilmember Asselleiter expressed exactly what I wanted to say, so thank you.
Okay, so that was a ditto. Anybody else have any questions for Gavin? Councilmember Lindley.
Yeah, just a quick follow-up. One of the, and then it looks like Councilmember O'Donnell.
No.
I see you there, Tony. One of those properties is actually fairly close to where I live. I know it's undeveloped, but I also know that when I spoke with people during the election cycle, multiple people in the general area mentioned how, don't do anything with this park, right? Now, whether or not they declined a maintenance district or, a SID or anything like that could be the case. But, I thank you for the clarification. That makes a lot of sense that, we probably do need to look at these individually to see what the benefit is or isn't in these cases.
Councilmember O'Donnell.
Thank you. A question, in terms of the school district 2 land that's on the screen right now, that would not provide any benefit property tax revenue to the city, but you've listed a property value of $30,000 to $40,000 on there. Does school district 2 want that land? Would they pay that? Is that a realistic amount?
Mayor and Councilmember O'Donnell, good question. One thing I should have put pre-said is essentially we haven't talked to any partners at this point about any type of interest they may or may not have in any of these properties. This is just a generated report. These values do come from the experts. Whether I have no understanding of land value, if that's 30 to 40,000, if that's accurate. They are here, and if you'd like, I would invite them to the podium to speak on the prices, if that's your pleasure.
Well, I would say that it's just an estimate. I understand that all things being equal, that would be the price. I was talking in particular about school district 2, if they had any use for that and had the funds in their budget to do it, and that's all speculative at this point. I did have one other question. I spoke with a longtime developer in Billings earlier, and he mentioned specifically about Lampman Park that I believe, if I understand correctly, he made a proposal a number of years ago to lease the land that would provide the city with a constant flow of revenue. Do you have any knowledge of that? I know you're new with the department. Do you have any knowledge of that at all, or what the consequences of leasing the property would be?
Mayor and Councilmember O'Donnell, I do not have knowledge of that. That's definitely an option for the 11 of you to decide if you decide to lease a portion of any city holdings.
Councilmember Nicholson.
Yeah, I like that idea of turning these properties into a revenue stream. They were donated as parks, and apparently they're not practical as parks, but they could continue to contribute to to the maintenance of the parks. I was thinking about maybe some kind of land trust or something that we could do, put them in, do long-term leases out of it. But I'm getting into an area I don't know a lot of things about. So, but I like the idea of turning these properties into revenue streams.
All right, Mr. Wiltshire, is there do you have categories of, have you separated these lands into categories? Like we would like to sell these for public use or private use, or we'd like to sell these for homing developments, or have you categorized them?
Mayor and Council, Mr. Mayor. So the recommendations are on each in the report, on each piece of land, what the realtors do recommend for development. Everyone's a little bit different. It's kind of, I'll use Lampman as an example. If we went residential, that is one price. If we decided to go commercial, that's a completely different price. So it's really, again, up to the 11 of you to decide which direction you want to go based on how they're zoned currently.
I'm looking for some suggestions here from council as to how you'd like to proceed.
Yeah, so to be clear, you don't actually want us to get into the weeds of that tonight. What you're looking for, and then you tell me if I'm right or wrong, is yes, this is a property to consider. No, this is not a property to consider. Would that be accurate?
Mayor and council, councilman, I would love nothing more if we can avoid getting into that conversation tonight. I do think it's a very necessary conversation. Keep in mind that the scope of this report was to generate and identify properties to dispose. How that goes on, that's like step 3 in the process.
So tonight, these properties are on the list as recommended to dispose of. All right. Council member Aspenlaner?
Yeah, I don't want to go there either tonight. And frankly, I don't want to go there ever. I mean, if we're going to sell them, we're going to sell them. We put it on the market and we let the market determine what that's going to be. Obviously, they'll have to comply with our land use policy. They'll have to go through a zone change. They can't be spot zoned. You know, you couldn't turn Lampman Park into a CMU1 style zoning. I mean, that's going to have to match with the neighborhood and the surrounding zonings. You couldn't, put a gas station on Palisade Park up in the West End. Like, I mean, some of those things are quite obvious, but if we put it on the market, we let the market determine what it's going to be. I don't want to get into trying to dictate what the land use will be. If we're going to sell it, I think we should sell it and let the market determine what that's going to be.
All right. Gavin, how long will it take you to run through all of these properties? Just give us a brief overview of each.
We can do it depends on how many questions you all have.
Yeah, zip through. We want to see them so they're on the record.
So the properties that we were looking at, again, is first one is Career Center Park. The recommendation, and again, I'm going to skip over locations and things of this nature. The recommendation would be to donate to School District 2. We have had brief conversations with School District 2. Nothing in the way of definitive outcomes or direction. We've broached it. The recommended price for this piece of land is between $30,000 and $40,000. The second property is Daniels Park. This is recommended to sell between $200,000 and $225,000. Keep in mind, Daniels Park was one of the two that the Parks Board said to partially sell, not to fully sell. Partially sell has not been defined. That is this land right here. Item number 3 is Lampman Park. Keep in mind that resolution from 2013 already established it to sell. It was rezoned in 2014, and there is a current ordinance for that. That being said, it is recommended to sell based off of between residential $600,000 to $625,000 and or $800,000 to $850,000 if you go multifamily or commercial. Meadowlark lots between $55,000 and $65,000. Single residential properties, and that's here. The parking lot on Minnesota Avenue, that's not mine. So it was humorous to have my board vote on it. But that's between $207,000, $260,000. Assistant City Administrator, Mr. Iflin, he does oversee that. So if you had questions for that, you could direct them there. And that's right here by the skate park for reference. Palisades Park, recommended to sell between $200,000 and $220,000. Some of it is developable, some of it is not because of terrain. Ramada Park, recommended to sell between $90,000 and $100,000. Again, some of the issues are the topography and usability of land, including the ditch on this property. Rush Park, between $400,000 and $450,000. Again, the ditch goes through that. Sandra Subdivision and Spring Valley subdivisions, I believe it's called. Yes, both of those belong to Public Works. Talking with them, they did intentionally put both of those pieces of property on the disposition list. And then the final one that would be on here, that's actually not on here, is the 802 Yellowstone. So that would make up the 11 properties that would be on this list. So next steps would essentially be this. I would write a resolution, bring it to you April 13th for a public hearing. That would the 11 of you would be deciding, yes, these are the 11 properties we want to dispose of. That's all that resolution would state, not how, donation, swaps, anything like that. Just that, yes, you have decided these 11 properties are up for disposal.
Thank you, Gavin. Okay, any questions, Ms. Shaw?
If I can get this on. That resolution wouldn't be an all or nothing though, right? We could say yes to 7, no to 4, or whatever.
Absolutely. So Mayor and Council and Councilwoman, I would speculate this. I would put forth the resolution just as with the fees a month ago, and any types of changes that you would make, we would make those post-meeting, send it off through DocuSign for the mayor to sign.
All right. Councilperson Kennedy.
Gavin, on any of these, if we decide to put them up for sale, someone offers, it still comes back here. We can decide to sell it or not, correct?
That would be correct.
Thank you.
All right. So staff is asking us to accept this report, reject this report, or alter the scope of this report, and I'd entertain a motion. Mr. Kennedy?
I'll make the motion that we accept this report and move forward.
We have a second from Mr. Nicholson.
Second.
Oh, sorry, Mr. O'Donnell. Mr. Nicholson beat you to the punch. Any discussion regarding the motion? Then let's move to a vote. All in favor? Oh, geez, I never look left. Who's first?
Mayor did last year, same thing.
Yeah. Mr.
So,
Pittman.
Mayor and Council, I've been part of this process. I started my career in the Parks Department and trying to parcel out some of these. I think it's a good exercise as long as we keep our mind open. To the neighbors, they're all going to come out and say they don't want to sell it, but they don't want to invest in it as well. So just be aware of that. I think it's a good, solid process to go through. I have no problem. I'm going to actually walk the neighborhood of Daniels Park. I've been getting some phone calls from them. I want to discuss with them one-on-one their options and invite them here. I think it becomes a great public discussion, and we invite the neighbors here to share their opinions as well. But I'm okay going forward with this process and visiting with our constituents in our specific areas.
Thank you. Councilmember Neese.
Nothing more to say.
So let's vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, say no. That motion carries. Thank you, sir. You did good.
Thank you, sir.
Item number 3, boards, commissions, and committee review. Staff recommends council consider the proposed initiative. Who's going to speak to this first?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember O'Donnell?
Thank you. So Yeah, so my initiative is to, excuse me, is to the 28 or more committees and boards to send those committees to the Operations Committee for review and preparation of a recommendation back to the council. Is this appropriate to continue on with the initiative?
Yep, go ahead, tell us what you want to hear.
Thank you. The committee will evaluate on many different criteria, including whether it's required by state law or a city ordinance. Was it formed as an ad hoc committee? What does it give to assist the council to make decisions? Should the committee be an ad hoc sunset after it's called to sunset after its purpose? How much staff time? How much staff time does the committee take or save? City attorney review of all these different committees, criteria for committee members. On some of them it's appropriate, some of them not. Conflicts of interest of committee members. In some cases, there's a call for that, others not. Can committees' purpose be consolidated into another board? Another great area of review. Is the committee in place because we've always done it that way? We've always had that committee? And other criteria as they may be pertinent. So the Operations Committee would prioritize based on whether or not it is created according to state law or city code requirements. And I think that would be a healthy process of review of these committees. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilperson O'Donnell. Any questions for Mr. Pittman?
So, Councilmember O'Donnell, do you know what your time frame is? I think some of these, and I think going back to the flow chart might be a good way to do this. If simply the answer is yes, it's mandated, it has to be required, next. If it's not, then go down, just kind of set up a flow chart to get us to the bottom of this fairly quickly.
Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
Yes, I do agree with that. Certain ones can be disposed of rather quickly in terms of their necessity. Nevertheless, I think it might be appropriate to review each of the committees based upon their makeup, whether or not the conflict of interest or the criteria, if any, should be necessary for a particular board. For instance, planning, a board of adjustment, should the people have any particular expertise or just be interested members of the public? These are things that I think the committee should take a look at. And I shouldn't think that the process would take a long time. It would require some staff time to give recommendations on whether or not these committees are assisting their departments or hampering their departments. This is something we won't know until we review the different committees.
Councilmember Kennedy.
One of the things, and I've been talking with Councilman O'Donnell on this, is by sending it to the operational committee. It's the mayor pro tem, and the deputy mayor that will set the criteria. We just gave some parameters for them that they would prioritize on the ones that are required by the state and city codes first, and then go through the others. And then they would set up the format of what they're going to do and when they will be doing it. So if anyone from the council wanted to join them and join in on the discussion on that, it would be in one of their meetings. And so I think as a council, we shouldn't micromanage that operational committee, but they'll come back with a formula of what they're going to do, and then we'll be able to go in and sit through them or not. But really today is just, we're going to move them over to the operational committee and have them looked at.
Any other Comments or questions for Councilmember O'Donnell? Mr. Lindley?
Thanks, Mayor. Councilmember O'Donnell, I just wanted to say I'm glad that you brought this forward. I think it's a great exercise. You know, I think I've certainly seen, as I think a lot of people have, how many vacancies we have across all of these committees and boards. There's a lot of them. So yeah, I think this is a great exercise, and I agree with the idea of sending it to the Operations Committee.
You good? All right, anything else? So staff says City Council may assign to the assign boards, commissions, and committee review initiative to the existing Council Operations Committee, or create another committee on committees, or just vote not to move forward. So I would accept the motion right now. Councilmember Kennedy?
I would make a motion that we send the review and the recommendations to the operational committee. There's no reason to create another committee when we're looking at the abundant amount of committees.
Okay. Do we have a second? Hold on, I want to look left. Councilmember Shaw? All right, we have a motion and a second to tell staff to assign the boards to the Council Operations Committee. Any discussion regarding the motion? Then we'll move to a vote. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 All opposed, say no. All right, great. That finishes item number 3. The next item on the agenda, upcoming agenda items or of council interest. So, Mr. Kukulski?
Mayor and council, yes, so upcoming, I would say, as you're aware, we've got a couple of additional meetings we've added to our calendar. So the 2045 land use plan, I would say, is definitely a top 3 policy issue, maybe top 1, over the next few months. So we do have special meetings around the lunch hour for March 12th and March 16th. So I know you're all aware of that, but just a reminder, there's posted. They'll be here. We'll get some lunch and work through that. That's critically important. And then Mayor, when you find appropriate, I would like to just update the council on a few things, but they don't exactly pertain to future council agendas, just so.
You want to go ahead and do them now?
Sure. Thank you. So first of all, I want to thank the staff and the council, is those of you, the 6 new ones who were sworn in January. We've done a couple of months of orientation. So I want to thank our staff, all of you, great attendance, great participation, really good dialogue and background. And it's impossible to get all the information on the ground, but I think we've got a really good kind of foundation to build from. So thanks for that. And these kind of bounce all over the place, but you notice Friday, the weekly report that comes out to you, it came from a new email address. So Dawn Hurd is helping me out. She's in the finance department, but with our executive assistant's retirement, we got people kind of pitching in and helping out. So that was not a test from the IT department. If you clicked on a link or anything, that was real, and they will come from Dawn each Friday as she's helping me out. We're also diligently working on federal funding requests. We got 3 federal funding requests we've landed on after several months of periodic conversations, what made sense, what aligns with what the offices are interested in supporting in DC, as well as what our needs are. So we'll get you more information, but there's 3 projects. One's a Arnold Drain Stormwater project, one's Met Transfer Station in the Heights, and the third one is tied to public safety. So we'll get you some more details there. But like I said, the alignment was basically between our needs and where was their federal programs and interest and guidance from Thorn Run, our lobbyists there. So Mayor's been signing some letters of support. Community is signing some letters of support. Don't want you surprised there. Mentioned the work sessions already on planning. There is, though, way out, May 7th in your inbox on your calendar is the vision, mission, core values day that we're going to spend. We had our kickoff meeting this afternoon, Kevin and I and some of the internal team with Bridge Group. You'll see a survey coming out in the next few weeks. There's going to be survey information that all of you and department director staff will provide. So just my point here is your calendar on May 7th, please, in this room. We got 26 of us, so I know it doesn't work perfectly for everybody, but with 26 calendars, May 7th is when we're locked in. Here, they will spend May 6th with the staff. That's what I have for you, Mayor and Council. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. We now move to public comment on non-agenda items. If there's any public comment on restricted to only items not on this printed agenda, your comments are limited to 3 minutes. Come on up and speak your piece.
7:26. This is going to work out well for some people. 3 minutes, 7:29. Wow. So you received, I'm sure hopefully that letter those letters found you well. I think tonight was a glaring example of just how important it is to have the public participate in items of significant public interest. And that was the first item you had tonight. I mean, you're taking votes, you're having council discussion, you've got policy decisions, but anybody that wanted to comment, you had to comment before, anticipating what might get said. You allowed the applicants to come up here and make comment, but the public never got to comment after the discussion. And so I think that's why I would ask again that you take public comment after your work session items, because that's really where the bulk of the work of this body gets done. I was going to say something else there. Able to come back to me. Never know. The second item is the letter about the TIF district. So at the January meeting, they take a sewer application, the advisory board votes on it, the TIF board votes on it. February, the advisory board doesn't get notice, so there's no advisory board meeting available. But the TIF board votes on the sewer application. I said, well, wait a minute, you guys, last month, both of you voted on it. They said, well, no. What they finally said was, our attorney, our privately funded, or our taxpayer-funded private attorney for the Sabura board told us that it's our money. This was approved prior to the TIF advisory board being conceived. And so this is our money, and we're going to spend it the way we feel like. I think that's a huge liability to the city, that you're going to have a private organization using taxpayer money seeking advice from a private attorney on the expenditure of taxpayer funds. Did they have a meeting, or was it just some rogue member that went out and decided to exercise this on his own accord? I wouldn't have a clue. But I would ask that, like in my letter, I think you need to take a position here and say you are not going to seek legal advice, and you're not going to exclude the advisory board from decisions when it comes to the financial expenditures of the TIF district, because that's what that legislation was for, and that's why it's in place. And you made it a firm stand and explain it to them real well. Thanks.
Any other public comment? Seeing none, I'll end that. And we are at the adjournment part, so we are adjourned.